AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my partner? So this is going to be long, but I really need to get off my chest. My sister, Emma, is getting married in a few weeks, and the way things have unfolded has made me seriously reconsider going to her wedding. I'm torn between feeling like a terrible sibling and feeling like my partner, and I deserve to be treated with respect. I guess I'll start from the beginning. Emma and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were competitive in ways that weren't always healthy, but we could still be close when it mattered. Our adult relationship has been okay, but there's always been a subtle undercurrent of judgment and condescension from her side. She's the type of person who believes she's morally and socially superior, which has caused tension over the years. I usually brush it off, but things came to a head when she started planning her wedding. When she announced her engagement, I was genuinely happy for her. I met her fiancé, Daniel, and while I didn't immediately click with him, I tried to be supportive. Around that time, my partner, Alex, moved in with me. Alex is amazing, supportive, and incredibly patient, which is important because I have a very demanding job that often takes up my mental energy. From the beginning, Emma made a few comments about Alex. Nothing too overt, but enough to make me uncomfortable. Things like, "Are you sure they're the one for you?" or "I hope they know what they're getting into with you." I brushed it off as Emma just being overprotective of me, but I started noticing a pattern. As the wedding planning ramped up, her behavior shifted from passive-aggressive comments to more direct actions. She insisted on sending us an invitation to her bridal shower, even though I live in another state, and expressed her disappointment when we said we couldn't make it because of work commitments. I tried to explain that I genuinely wanted to be there, but couldn't swing the time off, and she responded by guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I guess family doesn't matter as much to you as work does." That was the first red flag that she might not be thinking about anyone's needs but her own. Fast forward a few months, and the wedding planning escalated. I was excited to help with small tasks and to be a part of the celebrations, but Emma kept making comments about Alex that were increasingly hostile. For example, she called Alex too casual for our family social circle, insinuating that their clothing and lifestyle weren't acceptable. She once told me in a group chat that Alex shouldn't be at the rehearsal dinner because it wouldn't be appropriate, which I found humiliating and insulting. I tried to address it politely, saying that Alex is my partner and part of my life, and that I expected them to be treated respectfully. She brushed it off, claiming she didn't mean it that way, but the tone was clearly judgmental. The breaking point came when she started asking me to make lists of everything Alex owns for wedding seating and meal planning. I refused, saying that Alex is an adult and can communicate their own preferences. She flipped and accused me of not wanting Alex to be part of the family and said, "Maybe you're embarrassed to be seen with them." I was stunned. I tried to reason with her, explaining that it's not about embarrassment. It's about respect and boundaries, but she wasn't hearing it. At that point, I realized she wasn't going to compromise or acknowledge her behavior. A week later, I got a group text from her cousin, who was helping with wedding coordination, that read, "Emma wants you to know she's thinking about uninviting Alex because she doesn't feel like they fit in with the wedding vibe." I couldn't believe it. She had essentially given me an ultimatum. Either Alex stays home or I stay home. I thought about it for hours and eventually decided I couldn't attend the wedding without Alex. We tried to talk to Emma directly to explain our stance calmly, but she immediately accused us of trying to make her wedding all about us and said that she couldn't deal with drama during such an important time. She then blocked both of us on social media and hasn't responded to messages since. The fallout has been intense. Other family members are divided. Some think I should just attend alone to avoid conflict, but I feel like that would send the wrong message to Alex and set a precedent that her judgmental behavior is acceptable. Others think I'm overreacting and that weddings are about compromise. I get that, but I genuinely feel that being asked to exclude my partner, someone who is loving, kind, and supportive, isn't a compromise. It's an attack on my autonomy and happiness. I've been feeling guilty about not attending. I keep thinking about my parents and how disappointed they might be. I worry about the extended family drama and how this will affect family relationships long term. At the same time, I know that if I go without Alex, I will resent her forever, and it will taint what should be a happy occasion. I tried to explain this to Emma in a long, heartfelt email before she blocked me, but she didn't reply, and I suspect she never will. I've spoken to a few friends, and most of them support my decision to stay home, saying that her behavior crosses the line from being a bridezilla to being controlling and exclusionary. Some say I should just go to save appearances, but I honestly can't reconcile that with my sense of self-respect and loyalty to my partner. The thought of being at her wedding while she's openly judging Alex feels unbearable. I still think about what could have been done differently on both sides. Maybe I could have been firmer earlier, but I did try to address the issues politely. Emma could have accepted that Alex is part of my life and that their presence doesn't take away from her wedding. I just feel like I'm being punished for refusing to prioritize her sense of vibe over my partner's dignity. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she is trying to exclude my partner for arbitrary reasons and has treated us disrespectfully. The worst part is I love my sister, but I feel like she's making this choice for her ego rather than any genuine concern. I'm still debating whether to send a gift or a note, but I honestly don't know if I can emotionally invest in the wedding at this point. The family is tense, everyone is picking sides, and I just want to do the right thing without betraying myself. I'm open to perspectives I might be missing because I feel so conflicted. Is standing up for my partner inherently selfish, or is this a justified boundary? I really don't want to be the villain, but I also don't want to be complicit in my sister's unreasonable demands. This whole situation has left me exhausted, frustrated, and questioning the very nature of family loyalty. I just don't know if refusing to go makes me the bad sibling, or if agreeing to go without my partner would make me the bad partner. Either way, it feels like a lose-lose situation. I'm prepared for some backlash from family, but I need to prioritize what feels right and fair in this situation. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child. Teachers loved her, relatives fawned over her. It seemed like she could do no wrong. Me? I was always the quiet one in the background, the kid people forgot to ask about. I never minded too much, but it created this weird dynamic where everything important about me was somehow overshadowed by her. Fast forward to adulthood. I live in a different state, work a decent job, and have a close group of friends. Emily, on the other hand, got married young, had 2 kids, and lives a life that looks perfect on social media. I've always been supportive, even though she has this habit of expecting me to bend over backward for her without considering my feelings. A few months ago, Emily got engaged again. She had divorced a few years back. Her fiancé, Mark, is a nice enough guy, but I've never gotten particularly close to him. When she first told me the news, I congratulated her and asked about the wedding. That's when things started getting weird. Emily asked me to be one of her bridesmaids. Now, normally, I would have been happy to help, but she had very specific and frankly unrealistic expectations. She wanted me to buy a $500 dress that she picked out without trying on me first. She insisted on me getting a professional hair and makeup session that would cost another $400. She also asked me to attend multiple pre-wedding events, some of which required travel across the country. I politely asked if she could contribute to some of the costs or if we could find alternatives, because it was a lot of money for me right now. She told me flat out that if I didn't want to do it, I didn't have to, but implied that I should because I'm her sister. I tried to compromise. I offered to attend the bridal shower and bachelorette party, but I said I couldn't be in the wedding itself because of finances. That's when the issues escalated. Emily accused me of not supporting her happiness and said I was being selfish. She sent me a long text detailing how much it would mean for her to have me in the wedding and how I was the only family member who could make it work. I explained again that I genuinely wanted to support her, but could not commit to those costs, and that I hope we could find another way for me to celebrate with her. She didn't respond for a week. When she finally did, it was to say that she had replaced me with a cousin and that I didn't have to come to the wedding at all if I didn't want to. She also added a note about how family should always be there for each other, no matter what, which felt like a guilt trip. Here's where things got worse. I had already booked a plane ticket for the weekend of the wedding because I wanted to see her and the kids anyway. I thought I could show up, give her a gift, and celebrate in some way without being a bridesmaid. When I arrived, she refused to see me at first. When I finally did, she was cold and distant. She made a show of talking to other relatives and friends, but ignored me most of the time. She made one small comment about me, not really caring, before rushing off to mingle. I spent the day feeling incredibly uncomfortable. I tried to talk to her privately at one point, just to say that I was happy for her and that I wanted to celebrate, but she said she was too busy and walked away. During dinner, she made a toast and didn't mention me at all, even though I had driven hours to be there. Later, a cousin I was close to pulled me aside and said Emily had been telling everyone that I didn't care about her wedding and that I refused to be supportive. I left early that night, feeling hurt and completely excluded. I sent Emily a text the next day explaining that I was sad about how things went, that I loved her, and that I had truly wanted to celebrate with her, but the way she treated me made it impossible to feel welcome. I offered to have a lunch or video call soon to catch up properly, but she hasn't responded. Now, my parents are upset with me. They think I overreacted and should have sucked it up to make Emily happy. My friends and coworkers are split. Some say she was being unreasonable, and some say I should have just put aside my feelings for the sake of family. Even Mark's parents, who I barely know, reached out through a mutual contact to say they were disappointed that I didn't attend the wedding. I feel like I was caught in a situation where anything I did would be wrong. If I went along with her demands, I would have been financially stressed and resentful. If I didn't, I was selfish and unsupportive. I just wanted to celebrate my sister without being treated like a burden or an obligation, but it seems like that wasn't possible. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding and keeping my distance after the way she treated me. I realize this story is very long, but I wanted to give all the details to show the context and how hurt I felt. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to leave my service dog at home. I, 28F, have a service dog, Max, who helps me manage a chronic medical condition. Max is trained to assist me with mobility, medication reminders, and medical alerts. I've had him for 3 years, and he's a crucial part of my independence. I have disclosed this to friends, coworkers, and family, and Max is very well behaved in public. My younger sister, Claire, 26F, is getting married next month. She and her fiancé have been planning a large, elaborate wedding with about 150 guests. Claire asked me to be part of the wedding party, and initially I was excited. However, last week, she told me that I couldn't bring Max to the wedding venue. She said the caterers and venue staff had strict no pets policies and that allowing a dog, even a service dog, would disrupt the flow of the day and make guests uncomfortable. I was shocked. I explained multiple times that Max is a service dog, not a pet, and that he's trained to behave calmly and unobtrusively in crowded, noisy environments. I also told her that legally, service animals are allowed in public spaces and that he's there for my health and safety. She acknowledged this but said, "I know the law, but it's my wedding and I want everything perfect. You'll have to make other arrangements." I offered to sit with Max outside, if that would be more comfortable for the staff, or to ensure he stayed under my control at all times. I even suggested having a friend or family member help manage him during key parts of the event if needed. She rejected all suggestions, saying she didn't want him anywhere near the ceremony or reception. Things escalated when she started questioning my responsibility. She said, "I just don't see why you can't handle a few hours without your dog. It's only one day. It feels like you're putting your needs above everyone else's, like usual." I was hurt because my condition isn't optional, and Max isn't just a convenience, he's necessary. I reminded her that I've supported her and participated fully in her bridal showers, bachelorette parties, and planning, and that I was asking for reasonable accommodations, not special treatment. She then told my parents that I was being difficult and selfish, and they called me, urging me to compromise for the sake of family. I tried explaining again that this isn't a preference, it's a medical necessity. My parents seemed torn but suggested maybe I could leave Max with a trainer or friend for just a few hours. I explained that leaving him behind isn't feasible. It would put me at serious risk and violate my medical plan. After multiple tense conversations, I made the decision not to attend the wedding if I couldn't bring Max. I felt that attending without him would endanger my health, and that being treated as a problem for having a service dog was unfair and humiliating. I told Claire this over the phone, trying to be calm and understanding, but firm. She reacted angrily, shouting that I was choosing your dog over your family, and that I never put anyone else first. She hung up before I could respond. Since then, my family has been divided. Some relatives agree with me, saying that it's her responsibility to accommodate a service dog, and that a wedding isn't worth compromising someone's health. Others say I should bite the bullet and stay home for my dog, framing me as selfish and dramatic. Claire has gone so far as to post on social media about family drama and how she's disappointed I won't be there for her special day. I feel trapped because I genuinely want to support my sister and celebrate her marriage, but I also can't put my health at risk or ignore my rights with Max. I've tried to compromise multiple times, but she refuses any solution that allows him to be present. I feel like I'm being punished for needing a reasonable accommodation, and it's straining my relationships with family members who don't understand the seriousness of my condition. Reddit: AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to leave my service dog at home, even though she says I'm being selfish and putting my needs above everyone else's. AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me indefinitely after he said it would be temporary and started taking over my apartment. I, 34F, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in a city about an hour away from my family. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, and my life revolves around a strict schedule. I like my routines, my quiet space, and my home being my own sanctuary. I'm very close to my family, but I have always had clear boundaries about my personal space and home life. About a month ago, my younger brother, Jake, 28M, called me in a panic. He had just lost his apartment because his landlord sold the building, and he asked if he could stay with me for a few weeks until he figured something out. Jake and I have always had a close relationship, so I wanted to help. However, I work from home and my apartment isn't large. I agreed under certain conditions. He would stay in the guest bedroom, respect quiet hours, help with cleaning and chores, contribute to groceries, and actively look for a new place. Jake agreed and moved in the next day. The first week went okay. He mostly stayed in his room, followed the rules, and helped with some chores. But by the end of the first week, small issues started to appear. He would leave dishes in the sink for days, use my kitchen for long cooking sessions without cleaning properly, and help himself to groceries without asking. I reminded him about the rules, and he apologized, saying he just wanted to feel comfortable. By the second week, things started to escalate. Jake began leaving his belongings in shared spaces, bringing friends over without asking, and sometimes staying out late and coming back early in the morning, waking me up. His friends would also hang out in the living room and leave trash behind. I tried calmly talking to him about it, but he snapped and said I was being too controlling and didn't understand his situation. Around week 3, Jake suggested that he might need to stay indefinitely. He claimed that finding a new place was harder than he expected and implied that I should just let him stay since he's family. I reminded him that temporary meant temporary and that I couldn't accommodate a permanent roommate because of my work and mental health. He got defensive, saying I was selfish and uncaring and that families should support each other no matter what. To try to help, I looked up short-term rentals, sublets, and temporary housing options for him, even offering to help with the application process. Jake rejected everything, saying it was too expensive, too far, or inconvenient. Meanwhile, his behavior became increasingly intrusive. He would move furniture around without asking, use my office desk while I was working, and leave passive-aggressive notes around the apartment criticizing me for being rigid or overbearing. By the 4th week, my stress levels were through the roof. I started working from cafes just to avoid the chaos at home. My mental health was deteriorating, I was constantly anxious, and my productivity was suffering. Jake would make comments like, "I guess I'm not welcome here," whenever I reminded him of any rule, framing me as unreasonable or heartless. Finally, after 5 weeks, I told Jake he needed to find a new place within 2 weeks. I offered help with moving logistics, temporary rentals, and even some financial support if needed. He reacted angrily, calling me heartless, selfish, and cruel, and started framing me to my parents as being unkind and abandoning him in a time of need. Even after our conversation, he continued testing boundaries, leaving items in shared spaces, and occasionally breaking quiet hours. Family and friends have weighed in. Some argue that I should let him stay because he has nowhere else, while others agree that I am completely justified in enforcing my boundaries. I feel like I've been more than fair. I agreed to a temporary stay, clearly communicated rules, offered alternatives, and exercised patience for over a month. But I cannot compromise my mental health, work, and personal space for someone who refuses to respect boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me indefinitely after he said it would be temporary and then started taking over my apartment. AITA for refusing to host my brother's dream wedding in my house even though I offered help with the budget. So, this is a bit complicated and I'm still shaking my head over how dramatic this has gotten. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Alex, 28M, and growing up, we were pretty close, though our personalities couldn't be more different. I'm the organized, somewhat introverted type who likes routines and personal space, while Alex is very outgoing, flamboyant, and a bit of a dreamer. Over the years, I've gotten used to his chaos and learned to roll with it, but recently, it's been a lot. Alex got engaged about 6 months ago to his fiancée, Emily, 27F. From the beginning, they have been crystal clear about wanting a fantasy wedding and not sparing any expense. I supported them, offered to help them plan, and even said I'd contribute financially if that helped them pull it off. I didn't mind helping their family, and weddings are expensive, but I did have my limits. Here's the catch. Alex suddenly declared that he wanted to have the wedding at my house. Not a backyard party, not a small gathering, but a full-on 150-guest wedding with tents, a live band, a full catering service, and what he referred to as a magical garden experience. I live in a townhouse in a fairly compact neighborhood. My backyard is maybe enough for 20 people if you squeeze chairs, and I have a small living room, 2 bedrooms, and a tiny kitchen. I immediately laughed and asked if he was joking, but he was dead serious. I tried to explain multiple times that my place simply could not accommodate something on that scale. I said I could help them find a venue, help with decorating, budgeting, and coordinating, but hosting at my house was not realistic. Alex got visibly upset and started to argue that I owed it to him because you have the space and you're financially better off, so it's literally your responsibility to host this. I was floored. I make decent money, yes, but I have my own life, bills, and space limitations. I reminded him that I had already offered financial support and planning help, but that does not magically turn my townhouse into a venue. He didn't stop there. He began to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "You're always the responsible one. You owe me this, and everyone will think you don't love me if you don't let us have it here." At this point, I started to get frustrated and told him that my love for him does not equate to letting him essentially take over my home for a massive event that I did not agree to host. Things escalated quickly. He started texting me multiple times a day, saying that I was ruining his life and that he didn't understand why I couldn't just be generous. Emily joined in, saying that it would be so meaningful to have it at my house because it was where Alex grew up visiting me and it would make it feel personal. I felt like they were trying to guilt me into submission. I tried to compromise. I offered to host a small pre-wedding dinner in my house for immediate family or a small brunch the morning of the wedding, which I could reasonably handle. That seemed fair to me, but Alex called it insulting and said it wasn't what they wanted. My parents also got involved. They told me I was being stubborn and should just make it work for the sake of the family, and that my brother was already under so much stress planning this. I tried explaining that my house physically cannot accommodate 150 people safely, but they seemed more concerned about my attitude than the logistics. At this point, I decided to set firm boundaries. I sent Alex and Emily a detailed explanation of what I could reasonably offer: financial help toward the venue, planning support, and hosting a small family-only event. I explicitly said I could not, under any circumstances, host the main wedding at my house. Alex completely lost it. He accused me of being selfish and uncaring. I got messages from Emily calling me cold and ungrateful. The text turned into yelling over the phone, and my parents started pressuring me to just bend a little or don't be the villain in this story. Here's the thing. I love my brother. I want him to have a beautiful wedding, but I do not want to be forced to host a massive event in a space that cannot possibly accommodate it. I feel like I've done everything reasonable, offering money, planning help, and a small-scale event at my home. But they're not seeing any of that. I finally told them all that if they could not respect my boundaries, I would have to step back from helping entirely. This apparently was even worse, and now my mom is talking about how hard it will be to repair this relationship, and Alex has stopped responding to me except for passive-aggressive texts. I honestly do not think I did anything wrong. I'm setting boundaries in my own home. I'm helping financially and with planning, but hosting a fantasy wedding for 150 people in a townhouse is impossible. I'm just frustrated that they cannot see my perspective at all and are treating me like I'm the villain. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding in my house despite offering other forms of support. Character count, 6605. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of a seating requirement that I found unreasonable. So this is going to be a long one, and I'm not proud of all of my reactions, but I want to understand if I'm the asshole here. My brother, let's call him David, is getting married in a few months. He and his fiancée, Lena, have been together for about 4 years, and the wedding planning has been a huge stress point for our family. I, 28F, have a bit of a strained relationship with Lena. Nothing dramatic, mostly little things that accumulate. Lena is very controlling and organized, which is fine, but she has this habit of treating family like a checklist. She wants everyone to be perfectly placed and harmonious at all times, which often feels like she's micromanaging everyone's behavior. I usually try to get along, but I keep my distance. About 2 weeks ago, David and Lena sent out a seating chart for the reception. They included a note that said the couple is making special seating arrangements to ensure family harmony. Fine, whatever, but when I looked at the chart, I was literally at a table by myself. No family members, no friends, just me, and the table had a weird little nameplate that read, "Reserved for unique perspectives." I thought it was a joke at first. I texted David to confirm if this was a mistake. He said it wasn't. Lena apparently decided that I have strong opinions that could stir up family tensions, so they didn't want me sitting with anyone. I was stunned. My brother and I are close. We've had fights before, but I don't understand why I suddenly need to be isolated at my own brother's wedding. I asked if we could at least move me to a table with other family members, maybe some cousins or my aunt, and David said it's already finalized and Lena is adamant. I try to brush it off, thinking maybe the table being separate wasn't the end of the world, but as I read the guest list more, I noticed something else. David's fiancée had created zones at the reception: a kids area, a couples area, a friends area, and apparently a reserved space for difficult family members. I was in the last one. It really felt insulting. I brought it up again to David and tried to explain how hurtful it felt to be singled out like that. He said he understood, but that Lena would be upset if they moved me, and he didn't want to start a fight with her right now. I told him I felt like this wasn't just about Lena being controlling. It felt like they were deliberately trying to shame me in front of everyone. At that point, I said I didn't want to attend the wedding if that's how they were going to treat me. David was upset. He tried to convince me that I could just sit at my table quietly, maybe not interact with anyone, and everything would be fine. I said that felt humiliating, and I didn't want to be forced into that position. I also mentioned that I didn't think I could enjoy a celebration where I was being labeled a problem in front of the whole family. Things escalated when our parents got involved. They texted me saying that I was overreacting, that Lena is very sensitive, and that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. They said the table was not meant to hurt me, and that refusing to attend would cause unnecessary drama. I tried to explain that it wasn't just the table. It's the principle of being deliberately isolated. I also reached out to a few cousins who were attending. They told me that Lena had previously mentioned she was worried I might say something awkward during speeches or conversations, and that she didn't want anyone else to hear me contradict her in front of the family. So this was not just about a seating chart. It was a preemptive attempt to mute me. David texted me again, saying, "Please just come. I love you and I want you there. It will be fine." I replied that I couldn't go under these conditions. He didn't respond after that. Since then, the family chat has been a mix of subtle guilt-tripping and direct criticism. My mom said I was being dramatic and that weddings are stressful for everyone. My dad said it was a small compromise for the sake of peace. Some cousins are supportive, saying they understand why I feel excluded, but they also seem resigned to the drama Lena is creating. I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong. On one hand, it's my brother's wedding, and maybe I am overreacting by refusing to go. On the other hand, being singled out like that, essentially being labeled a difficult family member publicly, feels incredibly hurtful and humiliating. I also tried thinking about compromise, like maybe going just for the ceremony or sitting quietly at the table, but I feel like I'd be participating in my own public embarrassment. Part of me thinks that standing my ground is sending a message that this kind of treatment is not okay. Another part of me worries that I'm making things worse and could regret missing my brother's wedding forever. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of a seating arrangement that isolates me as a problem family member. This version is about 6,400 characters and fits the style of popular AITA stories. Family drama, moral ambiguity, and a clear conflict with relatable tension. If you want, I can write an even longer version pushing closer to 7,000 characters with more dialogue, backstory, and escalation. It would make it feel like a full-blown viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my friend move after she insulted my financial situation? I, 29F, have a friend, Melissa, 30F, who I've known since college. We were very close for years, but recently our friendship has become strained. I live a modest lifestyle, saving money carefully, paying off student loans, and renting a small apartment. Melissa, on the other hand, tends to live beyond her means, has bounced between jobs, and often borrows money or relies on others to help her financially. I've never judged her, and I've occasionally lent her smaller amounts of money, like $100 or $200, when she was in a temporary bind. A few weeks ago, Melissa announced that she was moving into a new apartment across town. She immediately asked me to help her move, and I told her I would check my schedule because I work full-time and have a side hustle. She replied with a list of ways I could help, including lending her money for movers, helping pack, and being there on moving day. The issue started when I explained that I couldn't lend her thousands of dollars for movers. I said, "I'm happy to help with packing and moving, but I can't cover the cost for you. My budget is tight, and I'm trying to save for emergencies and my own goals." She laughed and said, "Of course, you're always so careful with money. You don't live a little. I guess some people just don't know how to enjoy life." I felt hurt because my financial responsibility isn't a flaw. It's a choice I've made to stay stable. I try to steer the conversation back to practical ways I could help, offering to help her pack boxes and drive a few trips to the new apartment. She immediately dismissed my offer, saying it wasn't enough and that I didn't understand the stress of moving. She then started bringing up unrelated things, like my renting instead of owning a home and my small apartment, implying that I was cheap and boring. I told her that my financial choices are not her business, but she continued, saying I was selfish for not prioritizing her needs over my money. The tension escalated when she asked me to help move on the weekend, which conflicted with a prior commitment I had with my parents. I reminded her I couldn't drop everything and that I'd help on a different day, if possible. She responded with a long rant about how friends should be there for each other no matter what, and that I always make everything about money. She even texted me, "I can't believe you won't do this for me. Are you really going to let money and your little schedule come before me?" I felt like the situation had become emotionally manipulative. I offered to help with labor, packing, or making phone calls to movers to negotiate prices, but she kept framing it as me being uncaring. I told her calmly that I have my limits and that friendship doesn't require me to jeopardize my financial stability. Her response was to say that if I cared about our friendship at all, I would figure out a way to pay for movers or at least come help in person on her preferred dates. I decided not to attend her moving day because it conflicted with my parents' visit and I didn't want to be guilted into giving money I couldn't afford to spare. I offered to help a different weekend and even suggested that other friends who live nearby could help on the moving day. Melissa reacted by publicly posting on social media about how I abandoned her and that I never prioritize friends over money, tagging mutual friends in the post. Several friends reached out, expressing shock and asking why I wouldn't help, which left me feeling judged and isolated. Since then, our friendship has deteriorated. She sent multiple passive-aggressive texts, and some mutual friends have taken her side, suggesting that I should have found a way to help her despite my financial boundaries. I feel hurt and frustrated because I offered practical help, but she framed my refusal to lend thousands of dollars as evidence that I don't care about her. I also feel embarrassed that she publicly shamed me to mutual friends. I've tried talking to her calmly about boundaries, explaining that I care about her and want to support her, but I can't compromise my financial security or be guilted into spending money I don't have. She insists that friendship means making sacrifices for each other, and she frames my refusal as a moral failing. I want to maintain the friendship, but it feels like she expects me to prioritize her needs over my own stability, which doesn't feel fair. Reddit, AITA, for refusing to help my friend with her move in a way that would have required me to spend thousands of dollars after she insulted my financial choices and publicly shamed me to friends. AITA for asking my best friend to leave my house after she stayed longer than she said she would and started acting like it was hers. I, 32F, live alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I work remotely as a marketing manager, which means I spend most of my time at home. I really value my personal space, my routines, and my home being a quiet sanctuary. I'm very close to my friends, but I've always had clear boundaries when it comes to my living space. About 6 weeks ago, my best friend, Lena, 31F, reached out in a panic. She had just broken her lease unexpectedly and had nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay at my place for a week or two until she found something else. Lena and I have been friends for over 10 years, and I genuinely wanted to help. My apartment isn't huge, but I agreed under the condition that she would stay in the guest bedroom, help with groceries and cleaning, respect quiet hours, and actively search for a new place. Lena agreed and moved in the next day. The first week went fine. Lena mostly stayed in her room, followed the rules, and helped with minor chores. But by the end of the first week, small issues started appearing. She left dirty dishes in the sink, left laundry on the floor instead of in the basket, and helped herself to food I had bought without asking. I reminded her of our agreement, and she apologized, saying she just wanted to feel comfortable. By the second week, things started escalating. Lena began bringing over friends, sometimes several at a time, without asking. They were loud, used my kitchen extensively, and left trash around the apartment. I had a work deadline one evening and needed quiet, but Lena and her friends were watching TV loudly in the living room. I asked her to keep it down, and she snapped, saying I was being so unfriendly and overly controlling. Around week 3, Lena started implying she might stay indefinitely. She said she hadn't found a new place yet and hinted that since we were best friends, it was obvious she should stay. I reminded her that our agreement was temporary and that I couldn't accommodate a permanent roommate because of my work, routines, and mental health. She accused me of being selfish and said I wasn't being a good friend. To try to compromise, I spent hours looking for short-term rentals and sublets for her, offering to help with applications and logistics. She refused everything, claiming it was too expensive, too far, or too inconvenient. Meanwhile, her behavior became more intrusive. She left personal belongings in shared spaces, rearranged furniture without asking, and started using my home office desk while I was on work calls. She also left passive-aggressive notes around the apartment, criticizing me for being cold and unwelcoming. By the fourth week, my stress levels were off the charts. I started working from cafes just to get some peace, my productivity plummeted, and my mental health suffered. Lena would make comments like, I guess I'm not welcome here whenever I reminded her of the rules, framing me as unreasonable. Finally, after 5 weeks, I had reached my breaking point. I told Lena she needed to find a new place within 2 weeks. I offered help with moving logistics and temporary housing options. She reacted angrily, calling me heartless and selfish, and started framing herself as the victim to mutual friends. She even left more passive-aggressive notes around the apartment, criticizing me personally. Even after our conversation, she occasionally ignored quiet hours and left dishes unwashed. Friends and family have weighed in. Some say I should let her stay because she has nowhere else, while others support me for enforcing boundaries. I feel like I've been more than fair. I agreed to a temporary stay, clearly communicated rules, offered alternatives, and remained patient for over a month. But I cannot compromise my home, work, and mental health for someone who refuses to respect boundaries. So, AITA for asking my best friend to leave my apartment after she stayed longer than she said she would and started acting like it was hers. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister for exposing a secret she wanted to keep private, even though it caused a huge family rift. I, 28F, come from a family that's generally close-knit, but as is common, there are tensions that surface every so often. My sister, Lily, 32F, has always been a very private person. She's career-driven, a perfectionist in a lot of ways, and extremely sensitive about her personal life being exposed or judged. I, on the other hand, am more of an open book and have never shied away from speaking my mind. This difference has been fine most of the time, but it came to a head recently. Lily has been dating someone for the past year. Let's call him Mark, and she never really wanted anyone in the family to know about him yet. I had met him once at a brief gathering, and he seemed normal enough. But the issue started about a month ago when I was at a family dinner at my parents' house. During dinner, someone brought up dating disasters, and my mom jokingly asked if anyone had a secret crush or someone new in their life. At this point, Lily froze, clearly uncomfortable. She gave me a look that said, "Do not say anything." Here's where things got complicated. I didn't say anything that night, but the next day, she texted me in a panic because she had been telling Mark that she wanted to keep their relationship private for a little while, and she was worried everyone would find out. She explained she's had bad experiences in the past where our family gossiping led to tension or misunderstandings. I promised I wouldn't say anything, fully understanding her perspective. A week later, my mom called me out of the blue. She was upset and asked if I knew that Lily had been seeing Mark. Apparently, someone from outside our family had accidentally mentioned it in passing, and my mom assumed I must have told them. I denied it, and my mom seemed to believe me, but then the story somehow spiraled. A couple of family members started hinting that Lily had been secretive and maybe she was hiding something, and one of my cousins outright asked me about it during a small gathering. I was caught off guard because I had never intended to tell anyone, but during that conversation, my cousin pressed me repeatedly, insisting I must know since I'm close to Lily. I panicked slightly and said something vague like, "I think she's seeing someone, yes, but I don't know the details." I thought this would satisfy their curiosity without exposing anything substantial. Unfortunately, my cousin went on to share my vague admission with a few more people. By the end of the week, Lily's private relationship was out in the open among extended family. Lily was furious. She confronted me, accusing me of betraying her trust. She said I had promised to keep it a secret and had effectively ruined her timeline for telling people about Mark. I tried explaining that I didn't directly tell anyone and that I only gave a very vague answer when I was being pressured, but she didn't accept that. She claimed that even my vague response counted as exposing her and that I had a responsibility to stick to my word no matter what. I felt blindsided because I had genuinely tried to be careful. I also felt that the pressure from the family was unreasonable. They were pushing for information in a way that made it almost impossible to deflect without either lying or revealing something. I told Lily that while I understand her anger, I didn't deliberately betray her, and I thought she was overreacting. That only made her angrier. She accused me of being selfish and said she couldn't trust me anymore, at least in terms of personal secrets. Things escalated when our parents got involved. My mom said I should apologize to Lily because, regardless of intention, the result was that her private life was exposed. My dad sided with me partially, acknowledging that the family's relentless questioning put me in a tough spot, but he also said it wouldn't hurt to apologize to smooth things over. Lily insisted I issue a full apology, take responsibility, and even offered a list of things she felt I should say. She framed it almost as a public statement of betrayal. I refused to apologize in the way she demanded because I felt it would be insincere. I'm not someone who apologizes for accidents or for situations where my intentions were not harmful. I did apologize for the outcome in a general sense, like saying, "I'm sorry the situation turned out this way," but I refused to admit that I intentionally betrayed her or that I was solely responsible. She considered this insufficient and cut me off. We haven't spoken much since then, and the rest of the family is divided. Some think I should just apologize fully to mend things. Others think Lily is being unreasonable. This has caused a lot of tension. Family events have become awkward, and I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for something that was partially out of my control. On the other hand, I do understand that my actions, even if unintended, contributed to her being exposed. But I still feel that asking me to apologize in a way that would misrepresent my intentions is unfair. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister in the way she wants, even though it caused a huge family rift. Character count, 6, 360 if you want. I can craft another version that leans even more into emotional family drama and hits closer to 7,000 characters, which often performs even better in AITA threads. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me at my own wedding. This has been building for a long time, and honestly, I feel like I'm the bad guy here in my family's eyes, but I need to get an outside perspective. I'm 29F, and my sister, 31F, has always been competitive with me in a way that's subtle but obvious if you pay attention. She's always been a little manipulative, and our parents tend to favor her opinions over mine, but I digress. My husband, Alex, and I got married about 2 years ago. I had always imagined a small, intimate ceremony, but my sister insisted that we have a real wedding, which she would help plan. I was reluctant, but ultimately gave in because she really wanted to be involved. Things started well, but then she slowly started taking over. She had very strong opinions on every little thing: flowers, invitations, even the font on the menus. I tried to compromise, but it kept escalating. The breaking point came with the seating chart. Alex and I had carefully arranged who would sit where, and she completely redid it without asking. When I confronted her, she said, "Relax, it's your wedding, but I just know what will make everyone comfortable." At the time, I felt uneasy, but I didn't want a huge fight right before my wedding day, so I let it slide. On the day of the wedding, everything seemed fine until the speeches. My sister had volunteered to give one, which was nice on the surface, but what she said completely overshadowed everything else. She spent half of her speech recounting old embarrassing stories about me, some of which were very personal and humiliating in front of everyone. My parents laughed and said, "Oh, that's just your sister being funny," but it hurt deeply. To make matters worse, she ended her speech by implying that Alex and I weren't really ready for marriage because I had always been indecisive and flighty, which was completely untrue. I was mortified. Afterward, I confronted her privately, and she acted like I was overreacting. She said she just wanted to make the wedding memorable and that I was too sensitive. My parents told me I needed to let it go and not take everything so personally. The day that was supposed to be about me and Alex ended up being overshadowed by my sister's behavior, and I was devastated. Fast forward to last month. My sister got engaged, and naturally, everyone is excited. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I initially considered. But then the more I thought about it, the more I remembered how she treated me at my wedding. I also noticed that she had started hinting about having a big, extravagant wedding and mentioned she wanted me to take a back seat so her wedding would shine. I don't know exactly what she means by that, but it felt like a warning sign. 2 weeks ago, she asked me to meet her to talk about the wedding. She started by saying she needed my help with the guest list, dresses, and other planning details. I tried to politely explain that I didn't feel comfortable getting too involved after how I felt at my wedding, but she snapped. She accused me of holding grudges, being selfish, and never supporting her properly. When I tried to reason with her, she brought up the time I didn't help her move in college and other unrelated issues from the past. By the end of the conversation, I realized this wasn't going to be a productive discussion. I decided to send her a message a few days later, telling her I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that our last interactions made me feel hurt and that I needed space to heal. I offered to send a gift, but I was firm that I would not be present. She responded with an absolute meltdown. She called me cruel, heartless, and even said I was trying to ruin her happiness. My parents are now pressuring me to reconsider, saying that family obligations come first and that my pride is ridiculous. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to set boundaries, while others think I'm overreacting and should at least show up for my sister. Honestly, I feel conflicted. On one hand, I want to maintain some relationship with my sister and my family. But on the other, I don't want to be in a situation where I feel humiliated again. I also can't shake the feeling that attending her wedding would validate her past behavior and potentially set me up for another similar situation. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me at my own wedding. Character count, 6,503 if you want. I can also draft an even longer, more emotionally intense version that goes deeper into family dynamics, passive aggressiveness, and sibling rivalry, which often tends to make posts go viral. It could hit the full 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my brother-in-law he couldn't bring his newborn to my wedding because of his behavior at family events. I, 32F, am currently planning my wedding for next summer. My fiancé, Mark, 33M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we're really excited about finally making things official. The wedding is going to be smallish, about 100 guests, because we both have large extended families, and honestly, we want to enjoy the day without feeling like we're hosting a stadium of people. Here's the issue. Mark's younger brother, Alex, 29M, recently had a baby with his girlfriend, Lily, 27F. The baby is adorable, and I honestly love kids, but Alex has always been a bit of a nightmare at family gatherings. He's loud, he tends to drink too much, and he's been known to get into arguments with people over the most trivial things. Every time he's around his newborn, he also has a habit of being careless, leaving the baby with whoever is holding him without warning, making sudden movements, or ignoring safety concerns. I know some people might think that's overprotective of me, but I've seen it happen several times, and it genuinely scares me. About 2 months ago, when I started sending out invites, I casually asked Mark whether Alex and Lily would be bringing the baby. Mark looked a bit uncomfortable, but didn't give me a straight answer. Later, when we discussed seating arrangements, I brought it up again. I said that we need to consider the baby's needs, of course, but also the fact that Alex can't seem to control himself around the child. I suggested, politely, that maybe Alex and Lily attend without the baby this time, and that we could plan a separate family gathering afterward for everyone to meet the baby properly. Mark looked shocked and a bit upset, but didn't argue. He said he would talk to Alex and Lily. Fast forward to last week, Mark talked to Alex about it. According to Mark, Alex exploded. He accused me of being a controlling sister-in-law and said that it's his right to bring his child anywhere he wants, adding that I was being ridiculous and overdramatic. He said that he would skip the wedding entirely if the baby isn't welcome. Lily seemed more reasonable but still supported Alex, saying that the baby shouldn't be punished for his dad's past mistakes. I try to explain my reasoning. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about ensuring safety and peace of mind. I don't want to be constantly worried about whether someone is going to knock over a drink on a baby, leave him unattended on a chair, or get into a shouting match while holding him. I even offered to create a quiet room for families with infants, so the baby would have a safe space if they came. Alex didn't budge, and now Mark is worried I've permanently damaged the relationship between him and his brother. The rest of the family has gotten wind of it, and people are taking sides. Some people agree with me and think it's a reasonable boundary, while others are saying I'm overreacting and making Alex and Lily feel unwelcome. My own family is on my side, but also concerned I'm escalating the situation, while Mark is somewhere in the middle. I feel like I'm being completely rational, but now I'm getting texts from distant relatives asking why Alex and the baby might not be there, and I can feel the tension in the air. The wedding is supposed to be a happy occasion, and I honestly don't want to spend the entire day stressed out about whether Alex is handling his child responsibly. Mark keeps telling me that maybe I need to lighten up for the sake of family harmony, but I just don't see how inviting the baby while the parent who can't behave safely is present would make anyone happy. I don't want to force anyone to miss the wedding, but I also feel like I have the right to enforce boundaries that keep the event safe and enjoyable. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my brother-in-law that his baby cannot attend our wedding because of his past behavior and my concerns for the baby's safety. AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she humiliated me in front of my entire family at my engagement party. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, David, 30M, for 5 years. We've had a fairly smooth relationship, and recently we got engaged. Naturally, we were excited to celebrate with our family and friends, so we hosted a small engagement party at my parents' house. My sister, Lisa, 32F, has always been difficult, to put it mildly. She's very competitive, and growing up, I often felt like I was constantly in her shadow. She's always had a way of turning events into something about her. I try to keep the peace because I didn't want our family dynamics to ruin these milestones, but in hindsight, I might have been too tolerant. The engagement party was going well at first. My parents decorated the house beautifully, friends were mingling, and David and I were genuinely happy. That is, until Lisa arrived. From the moment she walked in, I could feel tension. She came alone, which I didn't mind, but she immediately started making passive-aggressive comments about the decorations and food. At first, I laughed it off, thinking she was just trying to get a reaction, but it escalated quickly. After a few drinks, she cornered me in the kitchen and loudly started talking about my engagement ring. She said things like, "Wow, that's the ring you picked? I mean, it's nice, but I guess it's okay for you. I just thought you'd pick something better." David probably didn't even try to get the one I suggested. My parents were in the living room, so she could be heard clearly. I tried to calm her down, telling her she didn't need to comment on my ring in front of everyone. But she doubled down, raising her voice, and began listing all the ways she thought I was not good enough for David, including jokes about my career, my apartment, and even my cooking. Things reached a boiling point when she loudly asked David if he was sure he wanted to marry someone who couldn't even host a party properly. My cheeks were burning, my friends looked uncomfortable, and David tried to intervene, but Lisa completely ignored him. She then went on a tangent comparing my engagement party to the amazing parties she used to throw in college, implying that everyone there was settling for mediocrity by attending mine. I finally had to walk away because I felt like I was going to cry in front of everyone. The next day, I confronted her about it. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable, that she humiliated me, and that if she couldn't respect this milestone in my life, she would not be invited to the wedding. Lisa immediately got defensive and said that I was being too sensitive and overreacting. She claimed she was just joking and that I needed to lighten up. I explained that joking about someone's life choices and publicly embarrassing them is not funny and that it crossed the line. She refused to apologize and told me that if I didn't invite her, I would be destroying our family. I discussed it with David and my parents. David fully supported my decision, saying that no one should treat their partner this way, and he didn't want her presence at the wedding to cause drama. My parents were a bit torn. My mom said she hoped we could reconcile, but she also acknowledged that Lisa had gone too far. My dad just said he didn't want to relive the embarrassment and would back my decision. Since then, I've been getting texts and calls from various family members who are pressuring me to invite her. They say things like, "It's your sister, you have to forgive her," or "You're going to ruin the holidays for everyone if she's left out." Lisa herself has sent several messages, some apologetic in tone, but all implying that I'm being unreasonable. A few even included veiled threats about not attending other family events if she's excluded. I'm honestly exhausted. I have no desire to include her in my wedding after how she treated me, and I feel that doing so would send the wrong message, not just to her, but to my future husband and our guests. I want my wedding to be a day where I feel safe, respected, and surrounded by people who genuinely support us. At the same time, the constant pressure from family makes me question if I'm being too harsh, even though I know my boundaries were clearly violated. I've considered the idea of a separate reconciliation before the wedding, but I'm not sure that's realistic. Lisa has a history of apologizing only to repeat the same behavior later, and I don't want to risk another public scene. I also feel guilty that excluding her might cause a bigger family rift, but I can't put my wedding happiness on hold for that. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after what she did at my engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she kicked out her partner. This has been a huge mess, and I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable or just standing my ground. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emma, 28F, who has always been a bit of a free spirit, lovable, but impulsive and not great with long-term planning. I love her, but living with her has always been challenging in the past, which is why I've tried to keep my distance when it comes to major life decisions. About my own apartment, my career, and a stable routine, and I like it that way. About 3 months ago, Emma called me late one night in tears. She had just gotten into a massive fight with her long-term partner, Mark, and ended up kicking him out. She said she needed a place to stay, just for a week or two, until she figured out her next steps. I hesitated because, in my experience, a week or two with Emma usually turns into at least a month. She promised me she'd respect my space, help with chores, and pay for groceries, but I was skeptical. I told her to take a few days to calm down and see if she could find an Airbnb or a short-term rental instead. She called me the next day, crying again, saying she had nowhere else to go and that Mark had left her in a financial mess. I felt guilty and finally relented, telling her she could stay for a week under very strict conditions. She could not bring Mark back. She needed to pitch in financially if she could, and she couldn't interfere with my work schedule or routines. That week came and went, and almost immediately things started to slide. Emma's helping with groceries turned into her eating most of my food without replacing it. She started leaving laundry in heaps around the apartment and left the bathroom in a mess every morning. She also invited her friends over almost every night without asking. I tried to stay calm and reminded her about our agreement, but she would cry and say I was being too harsh, claiming that she was fragile after the breakup. I felt bad and tried to give her some leeway, but I also needed boundaries. By the third week, she told me that she didn't want to stay just a week or two anymore. She said she was considering getting back together with Mark because he deserved another chance and that she wanted to sort things out while living with me for a while. I was stunned. Not only was she breaking our initial agreement, but she was basically telling me I was a landlord or roommate who needed to accommodate her emotional roller coaster. I told her no, that I wasn't comfortable with her staying that long, and she got incredibly upset. She said I was betraying her when she needed me most and that she couldn't understand why I wouldn't help her. I reminded her that she had choices. She could rent a place, stay with other friends, or even temporarily stay with her parents, who live in another city but could potentially help. She accused me of being cold and selfish. Things escalated further when she started passive-aggressively moving my furniture around, borrowing my clothes without asking, and texting me constantly during work hours. I told her firmly that she needed to find another place or move out. She threw a tantrum, crying that I wasn't family, and that she always knew I would let her down. It got to the point where I realized that my mental health was being affected. I'm usually a patient person, but constant stress, lack of personal space, and financial strain pushed me to set a hard boundary. I told her she had until the end of the week to leave and that I would not extend any more help beyond that. Emma's reaction shocked me. She called her mutual friends, telling them I had kicked her out in the middle of a crisis, and some of them started messaging me, questioning my behavior. I tried to explain the situation calmly, but she framed it as me abandoning her after she had nowhere else to go. Some friends agreed with her, saying I should have been more accommodating, while others sided with me, saying she was taking advantage. The week ended, and Emma finally moved into a small Airbnb, but the fallout hasn't stopped. She's not speaking to me and has posted on social media about being disowned by her sister. I know she's hurt, but I also feel that she was trying to manipulate the situation to live with me indefinitely while not respecting my boundaries. My parents are now weighing in, telling me to be more supportive and that family should always help, even if it's inconvenient. I feel torn because I love my sister, but I also feel that setting boundaries is part of responsible adult behavior. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me indefinitely after she kicked out her partner, and for insisting that she find alternative living arrangements instead. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she caused a huge problem for my entire family. So, this is going to be long, but I'll try to explain everything clearly. I, 33M, have a sister, Emily, 30F, who has always been somewhat dramatic and impulsive, but I've generally been supportive of her because family is family. Our parents died a few years ago, so we've been kind of holding it together for each other, but things got really tense recently. Emily recently moved back to our hometown after a messy breakup. She doesn't have a steady job, though she's great at social media and small freelance gigs, but nothing consistent. She also has a dog, a rescue she insists she cannot live without. When she moved back, she asked if she could stay with me for a while. I said no because my apartment is small, my girlfriend and I live there, and we weren't in a position to host her long-term. I suggested she find a short-term rental or a friend's couch to crash on, but she insisted, saying she had nowhere else to go. Anyway, the real problem started about 2 months ago. Emily got it in her head that she could open a small pet grooming and daycare business out of our parents' old house, which she inherited jointly with me. The house is in a decent neighborhood, but it's a residential property, not commercial. She assumed she could just start running this business without any permits, zoning approvals, or really thinking through the logistics. I tried to explain that it's illegal to operate a business like that in a residential area and that the HOA, Homeowners Association, could fine us, but she brushed it off. According to her, we could just deal with it later if anyone complains. Fast forward a few weeks, and she started advertising her Emily's Paws and Play business on social media. Dogs are being dropped off at the house for daycare. She brought in grooming equipment, set up small kennels in the basement, and basically turned our parents' house into a mini pet hotel. My girlfriend and I were increasingly uncomfortable because she was making a lot of noise, leaving messes everywhere, and frankly, it was unsafe. One night, one of the dogs got loose and tore up a neighbor's flower beds. The neighbor was furious and called me, not Emily, because the house is under both our names. Things escalated quickly. The HOA sent a formal notice threatening fines if we continued operating a business on a residential property. I asked Emily to stop immediately and remove her equipment, but she refused. She argued that she had invested money and time, and that I was being unsupportive and selfish. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I could get fined thousands and even face legal issues if she didn't comply, but she kept saying she'd handle it. Then came a breaking point. One morning, Emily left a dog unattended on the second-floor balcony. The dog fell and was injured badly enough that it had to be taken to the vet for emergency care. I was furious. Not only was this neglectful, but now we were liable for the vet bills, the potential HOA fines, and possible legal action if the dog's owners decided to sue. I told her she had to leave immediately. She refused and called me heartless, claiming that I was abandoning her in a time of need. I ended up calling a lawyer to understand our legal options, and the lawyer confirmed that, as the co-owner, I could remove her from the property, but it would require formal eviction proceedings if she didn't leave voluntarily. I gave her a final deadline, but she still resisted, saying she would never forgive me for kicking her out and that I was choosing a house over family. Meanwhile, I had to deal with the fallout from the neighbors and HOA. One of the neighbors posted about the incident on social media, calling it irresponsible and dangerous. My girlfriend is furious at me for letting this situation spiral so far, though I honestly feel like I tried everything I could to prevent it. I finally had to change the locks after giving Emily a final warning. She's now staying with a friend, but she has been posting on her social media about how I betrayed her and sided with bureaucracy over family. Our other relatives are taking sides, and some are angry at me for not supporting my sister no matter what. Here's the part one need perspective on. I feel like I went above and beyond trying to help her. I tried to explain the legal issues, offered suggestions for alternative places to stay, and even helped her set up a small social media presence for her freelancing work that didn't involve breaking the law. Yet she insists that I am the villain for enforcing boundaries and protecting myself from legal liability. I also feel guilty because she didn't have a place to live, but I really don't think it was safe or reasonable to let her run an unlicensed business from a residential property. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister operate a business from our inherited home, even though it meant kicking her out and upsetting family members. I really want to hear honest perspectives because I'm still questioning if I could have handled this better without causing such a huge rift. AITA for refusing to give my half-brother my expensive car, even though he deserves it more than me. So a bit of background. I, 24F, grew up in a blended family. My mom remarried when I was 10, and my stepdad had a son, Ethan, 28M, from a previous relationship. For the most part, I've gotten along with Ethan, but we're very different people. He's always been a bit entitled, and I've always been more independent and frugal. A couple of years ago, I graduated college and got my first real job. I also bought my dream car, a brand new, fully loaded SUV. It wasn't cheap, and I had to work extra hours and save a lot to afford it without going into debt. I absolutely love my car, not just because it's expensive, but because it represents years of hard work and independence. Fast forward to recently. Ethan and his wife had a baby. Ethan has been complaining constantly about how life is unfair and how he never gets anything nice. He has a decent job, but he's always in debt because he refuses to budget, buys things on credit, and frequently asks my parents for help. My parents have always given him a lot more financial support than me growing up, and I think this is part of why he's so entitled. A couple of weeks ago, Ethan came over to my parents' house to visit, and the conversation somehow turned to my car. He started saying things like, "You don't really need that car. You've got savings. I could use it more than you, with a baby and all." At first, I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But then he got serious, saying, "You should just give it to me. It's not like it's helping you more than it would help me. You've got other cars if you want to drive around." I was stunned. I told him absolutely not. I reminded him that I worked hard for that car, that it was mine, and that I had no obligation to give it to him. He got really defensive and said that I was selfish, that I had no sense of family, and that if I really cared about my stepbrother, I would just give it to him for the baby. He even said that our parents would understand and support him because it's what family does. I tried to explain that family doesn't mean giving away everything you've earned and that my parents didn't buy my car for me. They weren't involved financially. Ethan then started saying things like, "You've always gotten everything you wanted. You never struggle. Giving me the car is the least you could do." I was furious at this point because not only was he disregarding the fact that I worked hard for it, he was actively insulting my life choices. Things escalated. I said flat out, "I'm not giving you my car. It's mine. I worked hard, saved up, and I love it. If you want a car, get one yourself." He then accused me of being immature and selfish and eventually left. After that, my parents called me, saying they were disappointed in how I handled it. They told me that family should support each other and that maybe I should have at least lent the car for a while, especially because Ethan has a kid now. I explained that I have no problem helping in other ways, like babysitting, helping with errands, or even contributing money if I could, but I'm not giving away something I work for because Ethan wants it. Now, my extended family is aware of the situation, and there's a mix of opinions. Some say I'm right, that it's my car and my choice. Others think I'm cold for not giving my stepbrother what he needs more than I do. Ethan's wife has also started texting me, saying I'm ruining their family dynamic and that I should reconsider. I'm starting to feel a bit guilty because my parents and Ethan are making me feel like the villain. I know it's my car, and I shouldn't have to give it away, but the way everyone is framing it makes me wonder if I'm overreacting. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my half-brother my car, even though he has a baby, and says he needs it more than me. Character count, 6,492 if you want. I can also craft a second, slightly longer version closer to 7,000 characters that adds more family drama, subtle manipulations, and online-style arguments to make it even more viral Reddit story ready. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding because of a long-standing family conflict. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. My younger sister, Emily, 29F, has a habit of making big decisions without considering the impact on anyone else. And lately, it has escalated in ways that make me feel like she's crossing lines I can't ignore. I've tried to talk to her about it over the past few years, but our conversations usually end with me feeling drained and her saying I'm overreacting. Emily got engaged 6 months ago to a guy named Jason. From the beginning, she has insisted that I host the wedding at my house. I live in a modest but comfortable 2-story home, and while I enjoy entertaining, I've never hosted anything close to a wedding, and I really value my privacy. When she first asked, I hesitated, citing space issues and financial concerns, but she insisted that it would be perfect and that I wouldn't have to spend much because she and Jason would cover most of it. Fast forward to today, and the situation has completely blown up. Emily started sending me lists of demands weeks ago. She wants the entire backyard paved over with rented flooring, a marquee installed, and catering trucks to park in my driveway. She also expects me to provide all the furniture for the reception, as well as let her use my entire kitchen and pantry without reimbursement. When I tried to negotiate, she told me that asking for payment or limiting her access was heartless, and that it's my duty as her older sister to make her day perfect. I tried explaining that my home has sentimental value to me, and I don't feel comfortable turning it into a wedding venue. But she called me selfish and accused me of jealousy. She said that if I don't host the wedding, she'll assume I don't care about her happiness, and she started dropping subtle hints about excluding me from other family events. Things escalated further when she suggested that her wedding party could sleep over in my guest rooms the night before and after the wedding. I said no, pointing out that I live alone and have a very strict work schedule that requires uninterrupted rest. Emily got furious and started messaging our parents, framing me as unreasonable and dramatic. At this point, I had to draw a hard line. I told Emily I would not host the wedding at my home under any circumstances. I offered to help in other ways, like helping her find a venue, attending vendor meetings, or even helping with decorations elsewhere, but I refused to turn my home into a wedding site. The reaction has been brutal. Emily blocked me for a week and sent a long email saying that our relationship might never recover. Our parents have been calling me constantly, trying to mediate, but they're clearly frustrated with my refusal. My mother said, "You're being inflexible. This is your sister's happiest moment. Can't you just compromise?" I told her that compromise doesn't mean giving up my home entirely and taking on thousands of dollars in costs and stress that I don't want. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain here, but I honestly don't think I'm wrong. Hosting a wedding isn't like throwing a dinner party. It's a full-blown event that completely consumes your space, your finances, and your energy. I've had friends in similar situations, and even they required large deposits, professional rentals, or separate venues to make it feasible. Emily doesn't see it that way, and the more I push back, the angrier she becomes. Last night, she sent a text that read, "If you love me at all, you just say yes. Everything else is selfish and petty." I honestly don't feel guilty because I've offered help in ways that don't involve turning my home into a wedding venue, but the guilt trip is intense. I've also been losing sleep because I keep imagining my house overrun by vendors, stressed bridesmaids, and random guests I barely know. I know family drama is common, but this feels different. It's not just a disagreement about preferences. It's an expectation that I completely surrender my personal space and finances for her event. I've tried reasoning calmly, suggesting alternatives, and even offering financial assistance if it helps her find another venue, but none of it seems to matter. I reached out to a few close friends to vent, and most of them say I'm not in the wrong. They said Emily's reaction is manipulative and that my parents are pressuring me unfairly. However, some friends have suggested that refusing might cause a permanent rift with my sister, which I'm worried about. I don't want to lose her, but I also don't want to feel like my home and energy are exploited. The latest update is that Emily sent another group message to my parents, her fiancé, and some extended family, saying that I'm choosing my comfort over family, and that she can't believe I would prioritize myself this way. I haven't responded, and I don't plan to. I'm now caught between feeling justified in setting boundaries and terrified of being seen as cruel or heartless by my family. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my home, even though it has created major tension and hurt feelings. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.